Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, Katie and I are going to be reviewing the last 6 months of living in a canvas tent with our 5 children, expecting number 6. And spoiler alert, that season has come to an end. We are now living in a more civilized abode. And there's a few reasons as to why we are doing that. We're going to discuss some of them and what some key takeaways are from living in a tent with our family. I wanted to let you know before we dive into this episode that, of course, there's still time to be able to purchase your digital gift card for either Voberg Music Academy or the Get It All Done Club or, the couples package. Oftentimes people don't know how to encourage their spouse to buy either the Get It All, like if it's a husband that really wants their wife to be in the Get It All Done Club, or if it's a wife that really wants their husband to be in the Growth Initiative. There are some of those products that are kind of hard to explain to someone else. And it might seem like a weird gift to give someone because it's like, hey, here's a program for you to grow in these areas. It's almost, it's not insulting, but it's a little, passive aggressive maybe. It doesn't have to be that way, but it might come across that way. I say that to say, what?
Well, I feel like people say that, but then I think of it and it's just kind of like anytime I've thought of a program that I thought you would like, I'm just kind of like, oh, this is awesome. This looks like a ton of guys that are totally up your alley. They love what you love. I think you would love being around them.
Yeah, maybe it's
what I'm saying. I think it's like a honor.
That's hopefully how it would come across. But I was prefacing all of that to say the couples package is like the perfect way to purchase the program for your spouse. Because you can be like, hey, or actually if you're in the Get It All Done Club already, you get a discount for the Growth Initiative too. So there are like tons of great reasons this time of year to buy the digital gift for your spouse. Okay. Right now is the time to do it. The Growth Initiative is going to be open for about 2 more weeks, open for enrollment. And then that kicks off. That's a live program that starts the first week of January. And so you want to be ready for that. And the Get It All Done Club is not, well, there's live elements to the Get It All Done Club. You do some awesome live calls, but the core curriculum there is not time sensitive. You can be a part of that at any point in your life. All that to say, check the links below if you want some last minute Christmas gifts for those people that you care about.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Okay, so I know that we were going to talk about, a lot of things have changed. We are in a very warm environment right now. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. You guys not recording in a freezing environment is such a blessing. Also, wow, I keep bumping into my mic like I've never used a mic before. Elisha's beard is gone.
Oh.
It's still tripping me out. He did it the same day we left the tent, and I think it was a lot of change for the kids and myself.
Yeah.
Very handsome, but I feel like he went back 8 years or something, and all of a sudden I'm feeling like I have this really young husband over there, and I am feeling very matronly.
I was surprised that you were surprised because that was my commitment to the beard was, yeah, it was just that. I was saying, hey, as long as we live in this tent out in the woods, I'm just going to grow a beard. And so it was the first thing I thought to do when we moved out of the tent, honestly. Well, it's like, well, time to shave the facial hair. And I knew the kids were probably going to be surprised, but you were you couldn't look at me the same way. I was insecure for a solid hour.
You shouldn't be insecure. I was really attracted to you. I thought
That's
it
not
was
how you were
really
acting.
attractive.
You just gonna be oh my, I'm not used to this. Okay. Whoa. This doesn't even seem like you. Whoa. It wasn't that long ago.
It's half a year. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And also, I think the difference is you lost weight in your face from moving into the tent. So when you moved into the tent, your face was much rounder.
Yes.
And then you had the beard, and then you shaved the beard, and it was this transformer thing. So it wasn't like you just looked like you did before the beard. You look like you did 4 years ago.
Well, that's a little dramatic. I don't know. 4 years isn't that long, so maybe it's not that dramatic.
I don't know, 29 or
29. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I never thought I never had intentions of being a bearded man. I never thought that was going to be my thing.
Yes.
It truly felt like this, hey, let's give this a shot. since we're out here. It felt like a good excuse. It was kind of like cover fire because I think, I don't know if any other men can relate to this, but growing facial hair it's a bit of a journey, and it's a little bit, it can be overwhelming and intimidating. And I've got some close friends that grow some, incredible facial hair. And sometimes I feel like you need like this excuse to grow facial hair because you're not secure in your abilities of themselves. And so I felt like living out in the tent was my excuse. It was like this, I know that this probably doesn't look that good, but we're living in a tent, so I'm giving it a shot. But deep down, I was really curious as to like how it would come across. I think people do that with like, No Shave November. It's like they're curious as to if they could pull it off. And so they use the excuse of like No Shave November, or of the mustache in March or whatever.
Also, it's freezing to shave in the creek.
It was.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Like it was just harder to keep up on.
It was. That's what I mean. There were true practical reasons for growing up my facial hair, and I've always been curious as to, how it would look and how I'd be able to pull it off.
Yeah. So anyways, it was a fun season, and I'm not sad to see it go either. I do love to see your face. Okay. All that being said, I wanted to let you guys know about one more thing that you might want to put on your Christmas gift wish list.
Great.
Because we're launching our first print magazine next year. And it's coming way faster than what I thought. But we have some incredible contributors. I'm really excited. The people who have written in and are going to write about everything from home management to raising confident children, to we have a little children's section on kids writing about the hardest things that they've ever done to inspire other children, and singles writing. So it's just going to be a magazine where, Elisha and I are writing in the magazine, but it also is going to be something that we hope is going to encourage the whole family, from parents to singles to youth, and we're just really excited about it. So anyways, that said, the annual subscription is only going to be available for pre-order for a couple more weeks here, and then we're going to shut that down because we have to figure out how to print this thing and get it to you. So that's going to be a whole new thing, because you guys know we've done primarily digital products. So anyways, we're really excited about that, but it is going to be something that's shutting down here in the near future. So if you're curious about it, I will leave a link down below as well. Right now, we are just doing annual subscriptions, just to keep it simple and know what we're going, like how many we're going to be fulfilling for the year, just because this is new for us. So that's all that the pre-sale is we aren't doing one-off magazines right now. Anyways, okay, so I want to let you guys know about that. And then, we're here in this cozy house.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into the physical product space, because living in the tent, I think, gave us a greater appreciation for like the meaning of each item that we owned or that we decided to keep in the tent with us. And obviously, our listeners know we've become more and more advocates of, less screen time, more reading, more, doing things with our children, playing music, playing games, and so forth. And we love the thought of having a magazine. There's a handful of publications that we enjoy like having on display, that we enjoy just having and within arm's reach on a random Saturday, that you can just grab and, popcorn in on an article that you haven't yet read. And we really want to be able to offer that to other people. And fortunately, everyone we've reached out to and asked to contribute has been game for it. And so I'm excited to have the type of product that I would want to have in my home. That's really fun to think about. And so, I was saying that to say, coming out of the season of the tent, I think we do have a greater appreciation for just the books that we have access to, just the things that we have in our living room. Again, we're not in our own home right now. We're in an in-between home as our barn is being finished up. But we want to be able to offer that type of product, a product that we would want in our living room.
Yeah. So kind of how this all came to be. You guys know we were, I don't know, like, I don't even know where to start with this episode, to be honest. It's like, we need to update you. It's kind of like when we told you guys we were moving off grid in the first place. It was kind of like, well, there have been a lot of conversations and a lot of stuff has happened. And here we are, we're filming outside all of a sudden. And we feel like we should let you guys know. If we were doing this podcast audio, I don't even know if we'd make this episode. We'd probably just like keep living life. But I feel
Right.
like there are these elements of like, well, we clearly aren't in the tent anymore. And so we need to update you guys still to a certain extent on our lifestyle, even though this isn't a lifestyle podcast.
Right.
These updates are just necessary to take you along and fill you in. So when we moved out to the tent, we had this goal of 3 months and enjoying the summer out in the tent. And I think secretly we both were considering, like, if things went well, everyone says a build takes longer than you think it's going to. And so we thought, well, maybe we could stay till the build's done if it finishes up in the fall. And that was kind of like our best stretch goal case scenario. But we also didn't want to make these big claims of like, we're going to be here, forever, because we didn't want to like commit to something, commit our listeners to something, just like set people's expectations up for something and then quit. And we didn't know how it was going to be when it started raining, and we didn't know how it was going to be when it started snowing, and we didn't know what it was going to be like in the heat. And like, so we just were really taking it one day at a time. But our commitment level was to the tent for a longer term than what we were communicating up front.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to kind of summarize the last season, because as you mentioned, we've never viewed the podcast as like a lifestyle piece where we're just taking you on this journey of our life. Obviously, we share elements of our life, but because of the logistical change, and like you said, because of the video aspect of the podcast now, back when it was audio, we could be doing it anywhere. Nobody needed to know. We were doing it in the car. We were doing it in closets. We were doing it wherever. But we have an obvious environmental change here.
Podcasting,
Yeah.
all those places.
Yeah. Well, that's what did you think I was talking about?
I don't know. It just sounded
Where's
funny.
your head at, Katie? I tell you what, you always get mad at me for being the inappropriate one. And here you are. Well,
You
the
said
other is
that.
true too, and so maybe that's why your head went there. And so yeah, updating you on what we're currently doing, it just feels like it's a good thing to do. And something that I wanted to say, Katie was dead set on delivering the baby in the tent, literally until like a few days ago. I would say maybe until about a week ago, and that was something that once we passed fall. And where I guess since we were in fall and it got cold, you're like, I love this. This is the best in the tent. You're like, I'd way rather have the baby here than anywhere else because you felt so comfortable. It was like your happy place. And I loved it. It was my happy place too, but I did not like the idea of having our baby there.
Yeah, I think there's this element of after you spent 6 months somewhere, it just feels like home. And it doesn't matter where it is. It's like, all of my favorite things are now in this place. It's my favorite books. It's our favorite, comforters and food. And like all my comforts are here now. And we also had like our lifestyle was really based around this tent. And it just seemed, I've always done home birth for the reason of I'm the most comfortable in my home. And so it just sounded very uprooting to me to a week or two before the baby move somewhere else. Because just to back up a little bit, the build process stretched on and on. We had some changes that we made. We had, unforeseen circumstances come up. It's just like how life goes. And so then our build wasn't going to wrap up in 2024. Like we thought, and it was going to start going into 2025. So that's when we had to reconsider, like, okay, we'd wrapped our mind around summer, had a good summer. Fall got a lot easier, actually. And we loved fall.
Yeah. I mean, if you go month to month, we moved in at the end of June, and the first month was probably the hardest because of probably just adjusting, learning how to work, and that was, again, we were running off a generator at that point. That's the only way we could get internet. That's the only way we could charge our phones. That's the only way we could charge the white noise so that we could sleep at nighttime. And so it was an adjustment. And then July, go ahead.
And also just things like, all sleeping together in one room, stuff like that. Like the kids were not used to that. So they're up all night long. with every little noise. Going to the bathroom outside was a big deal. So like everything was this huge adjustment.
It was. And there was a lot.
Cooking.
Yeah, cooking. Exactly. You
Out of
get
an
used to
ice
that.
chest. Buying groceries a new way. We didn't have any freezer storage, obviously, for the last 6 months. So like by month 4, 5, 6, I mean, you're so used to just not having freezer storage, but I was coming from having a lot of freezer storage. That's where a lot of my systems came from for our cooking. So like everything was just very different.
It was. And I'd say the whole first month was a month of adjustment, maybe, 6 weeks. And then August was honestly really hot, and we didn't foresee the heat and, as silly as it sounds, the bees like being a huge challenge to our life. And those, just like trying to record the podcast with bees everywhere and it's so hot, was like a true challenge, just the elements, and the wasps and the kids, kids getting stung and dealing
Every
with
day.
that every day. And we're like, wow, how do we get away from these guys? The bees, not the kids. And then September, it's like, it became paradise almost. So when the weather cooled, they were perfect temperature days. The bees were gone. There were a lot more critters at that point. I think because it started cooling down at nighttime, the critters started being drawn to the tent and everything there. So that's when we had to get the cats because the pack rat was running through our tent. There were skunks coming up to our tent every night. Early on, there was a lot more coyotes, so that was nice that those went away because they would come up to the tent in the early months. And so basically, all the first 2 months, we were like, well, let's just get through summer. But then by the end of the third month, we're like, there's no place we'd rather be. This is paradise right now. And that continued all the way through October. And so September and October were, in my mind, hands down, like the best months of our life. And I'm not exaggerating. They were just glorious.
I feel like went pretty well into November, where it was going really well, where
Yes.
you were still bathing in the creek every single night. And
Well, yeah, I bathed in the creek into December, and I loved November. I'm just saying September and October were the best.
Yes,
Like
yes,
they were
yes.
by far the best. November was great. And so we're like, well, let's just finish out the year here. And then it just became not great quickly.
well, as things too, like we got our little tent in the fall. And so then we were able to have some separation. We had a really good school flow where we were able to be inside. Elisha was able to work from the property more instead of just going into coffee shops. Our internet was stable at that point. Just little things like we had one electrical outlet in the tent. And so we were able to run our white noise all night long instead of charging 3 white noises. And I would turn one on and then I'd have to get up 2 other times because it would die and I'd have to flip the next one on. So like just basic stuff like that. The dog started sleeping in the tent in the fall. And so that was, I don't know, it was just different, but it was good not having to crate him, stuff like that. It was kind of the glory days of Gentry, honestly,
Yeah, they
before
were.
he started getting really big and taking up a lot of space. And that was the other thing with the dog is all during the fall, we would just leave him on the property when we leave.
Yes.
And so we didn't crate him or tie him up or anything. And we'd just go and he'd stay on the property. And then he discovered that the neighbors had chickens. And he only went over there one time, but it was enough for us to be like, I mean, you don't want to be the person whose dog eats the neighbor's chickens. So after that, we started having to either bring him with us or tie him up. And at that point, he's 75 pounds and our car is not very big. So that started cramping our style towards the later fall. The creek started cramping our style in terms of I stopped bathing in the creek at the end of October. Leon and Elisha kept going into November. Elisha carried it into December. But at that point, it did just become harder because we were going in to shower like once or twice a week. And it was kind of this slow dilapidation of stuff that we'd brought out to the tent that had served us really well was just kind of starting to fall apart. And then the hygiene was starting to get more difficult and I was feeling worse about it. Stuff just like our vacuum cleaner. We started using so much wood in the tent and there was just so much debris getting brought into the tent that vacuuming our carpet was breaking our vacuum. And so every time I would go to vacuum, we'd have to take apart the vacuum several times just to get one vacuum through the tent.
Right.
And you're cleaning out the hoses just to
Whoa.
get through the vacuum session. So stuff like that, like our water filter froze so many times, it's just started dripping.
Yeah.
So we had to have a bottle under it all the time. You know, we felt like civilized people living in a tent. And then towards the end of November, beginning of December, we started feeling a little grubbier than we would like.
That's and like you said, it was an accumulation of a handful of things, because even going to church on Sunday through the summer and through the fall, we felt like we were able to get cleaned up, be presentable. You and I would go on the occasional date, you know, and Jenny was willing to come out and watch the kids, and that was fun. And then things just slowly started like chipping away, where it wasn't as clean in the tent. Like, you would do a phenomenal job keeping it orderly, but just Gentry being in there, and like you said, because it was so cold, we were packing more and more wood into the tent, and then it was getting muddier outside, so it was harder to keep it clean. And it just kept compiling to a point where we just didn't like ourselves, basically. And I don't know how else to say this. Like, this isn't like, there were numerous times where I felt awesome about myself living in the tent, right? Like, that's probably a bad thing to
you're
say.
like the man, yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't that I was the man. I was just kind of like, this is awesome. I love this. Like, it's so cool that I get to do this. And I felt that way through November, whether it was even, like you said, bathing in the creek. It felt awesome bathing in the creek and then coming into the wood fireplace and getting, dried off for bed. And then in December, it was just kind of like, this is dumb. Like, I don't like this anymore. And it took me a lot longer to warm up too, as it cooled down outdoors, like just reheating. And so, yeah, I think we just both agreed our time there had run its course, and it just wasn't enjoyable anymore. There was enjoyable moments for sure.
It was very enjoyable at times, like different times throughout the day. And then there were different times where you both were like questioning,
yes,
like, what's going on.
And we've said this from the beginning. It's had our highest of highs. And again, I'm not exaggerating, like the best moments of our life, I think in my mind, came out there at the tent. The best lives of our family's life came out there at that tent. Like evenings that I was like, if I wasn't living this right now, I wouldn't. Like, if I heard somebody try to describe what we just went through in this evening routine and like reading with the kids and singing songs and lighting the candles and like rocking in the rocking chair next to the wood stove after bathing in the creek, like I wouldn't have believed how enriching, it actually was. And so we had those moments literally up until the end, but they became, they remained steady, but the negatives just kept creeping in there.
Yeah, it just started getting harder. It really started getting harder. Napping the baby was harder because it was hard to find a warm space. And so anyways, there was really, what happened is we came home from Thanksgiving with the flu. And I was really excited about Christmas in the tent. And so we did do like a week of Christmas stuff where it's like, we hung up our wreaths and we got our little tree in the tent and our stockings, and like it was really cute in there. The kids were all really excited to do Christmas in the tent. I was very excited. I was like, we just have a few weeks left here. We'll make them really special. And then everyone went down with the flu. It was the first time our whole family got the flu. And it was just very, very difficult having the flu in that environment. And it kept kind of dragging on. As people with a lot of children know, someone will relapse or a couple people get it later. And so I think that definitely contributed to just the overall cleanliness feeling, the burden of, okay, someone vomited in the middle of the night, and what do we do with all this stuff and the smells? And so anyways, that was really, it took the fun out of it.
Yeah.
For sure. Having the cold plus the flu and no amenities. And then it's kind of funny, but we had this Christmas craft fair. And I honestly think that contributed a lot too, because I was pouring, like, we only have so many daylight hours. And so I was spending a lot of time helping the kids with their crafts. And we're all in one room too. So that was contributing to the clutter of the home, I feel like, because Elisha would come in and be like, and just like the difficulty with the electricity and stuff like that. Because Elisha would come in and be like, hey, the internet cut out. Like, what's going on with the internet? It's like, oh, we're running the sewing machine or we're running the saw. And so it's like for a week, we're like every 30 minutes, we're flipping the power breaker.
It was a real power struggle because
it was a
the kids
literal
had their
power struggle.
deadline, and so you needed to either run the sewing machine with the power outlet, or Leon needed to run the scroll saw for his craft. And then I would like need to charge. I was like, guys, sorry, like I need to work. The battery on my computer's dying here. I need the outlet. And it was like this, I was like, why am I having to, like
compete with the kids for this like
the
outlet?
Yeah.
And so there was just elements too of like, okay, it's like we have candlelight, we're sewing by candlelight, and there's just fabric everywhere and stuff everywhere. And Leon's stain, the wood stain was everywhere.
Oh, yes.
On his coat, on all of his stuff. His hands are just like so brown, and there was no way to like bathe the kids a good amount,
Not thoroughly.
Not
it's
thoroughly.
Like,
so they looked so grubby, and Elisha and I are just like, okay, we can't like be walking around with 5 grubby looking kids. Like they aren't, they are cared for here. Anyways, so that was like midway through December.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's when Elisha and I looked at each other and we're like, you know what?
it's been good.
It's been such a win. Maybe our family has just expanded to the point where the cold and the extracurriculars and Elisha's job and everything, it's just we aren't all cohabiting here very well anymore. And it also took the fun out of it for me because I talked to my midwife about birthing in the tent. And she was like, absolutely. My midwife is awesome, which is great. And so we thought, that's great. We'll do this. And, but then after being sick in the tent and having to go outside to the outhouse in the freezing cold while you're feeling sick with the chills and everything, that's when, and Elisha and I just like trying to let the other person rest. Well, you really can't. You're like all in the one space. So that's when I was thinking, okay, this is not going to be good postpartum, which is what Elisha had been saying all along. He goes, Katie, you can give birth in the tent. That's not a big deal. And then, I mean, he wasn't trivializing my birth experience, but my births have historically been not that traumatic. So it's like, okay, so say that's a good experience, great. But then for the next 3 weeks while you're sleeping and trying to sleep during the day and the baby's up all night, and like, what am I doing with the kids? Am I just like sitting outside for hours at a time? You can only drive around so much. And I think experiencing that, the Lord was really gracious, showing us that. Just being sick and me trying to recover because I was the last person who got it. And it was just like, yeah, this doesn't really work very well. We need to move into town to have this baby. And it's not saying that people don't do it. And it's not saying that if we had to do it, we wouldn't, because we would. Mm-hmm. People are so adaptable.
Yeah, when you have to do something, you figure it out.
Yeah, but it was kind of like, this is going to add a lot of stress to our lives, and we don't need to have that stress added. And so that's when you started looking for a place for us to stay.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. We were talking about kind of like the charm wearing off, or losing its, the negatives were starting to kind of impede. But really, it was the sickness that put us over the edge. Because obviously, it's no fun being sick. It's no fun being sick anywhere. And the flu, anytime with kids, is messy and stinky, and nobody's sleeping, and it's dramatic. But the tent revealed our lack of systems, our lack of amenities. Like you said, just it wasn't, when you're healthy and when you're full of vitality and energy, there's something kind of invigorating about the cold water. When you go to wash your hands, you go to wash your face, or you go bathe in it. And even when you go to use the bathroom and you're in good health, it's kind of invigorating. The cold air, you're like, that's great. And then you get back into the warm tent. But then you get sick. And the difference of like being able to walk, to the next room to go to the bathroom versus like, man, I got to walk like 45 feet in the freezing cold. It's 22 degrees and I'm sitting, on the toilet.
Find my coat and put my boots on.
Yeah, exactly. The whole rigmarole.
Gear up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're like, then I go to wash my hands after that. And like, I already have the chills from the flu. Like, and then I'm getting in cold water. It really yeah. And then, so being able to picture, not that you have all those symptoms when you're postpartum, but I do think just access to water and, to warm water ideally, and plumbing is really nice. And yeah. So.
And that's on my end of it. But then honestly, I think that even the bigger part of it was more the kids when you have 5 children, and again, the dog and the cats, and you're all in the same really small square footage, it's just really hard to rest. And I was like, I don't want to be getting like mastitis out here. I'm not going to be sleeping. And then I don't want that burden on Elisha. He's going to what? Just drive the kids around town all day, every day for like a week? Like, how does that work? Or sit outside around the fire and they're freezing cold. And, so it was just kind of like, this is really going to be difficult. So thankfully, Elisha started figuring out our options for renting. And we got really, then we realized how complicated we were to rent to, especially with our animal situation. And so we ended up building a really sweet pad for Gentry.
Yes.
Which is nice.
He's living large. We built like a nice dog run with,
Oh, we told you guys that on our last podcast. That was the night, his first night in the dog run.
Yeah, that's right. And he's loving it.
And so just so you guys know, he's been happy there.
Yeah.
So that's good. And then we were planning, though, on living out one more week in the tent situation, still doing Christmas in the tent. Because again, we still had that excitement for the Christmas time. We were all feeling better. Morale was lifting. And then going over to Elisha's families for Christmas. And then basically the first of the year moving into town. But something that was kind of hanging over my head about that is because we have had children at 37 weeks. My window is kind of 37 to 39 weeks with our first 5. We'd be definitely like piling into a place potentially days before I have the baby. I mean, it could be 3 weeks, but it could be days. And so that was definitely hanging over my head when I started feeling this, like, I'd like to nest. I'd like to, like know where, like get new systems. We haven't been in town for a while. There are certain things that we're just going to have to throw a ton of it away. Just because like we aren't presentable to live in society. Like we could pull it off like 2 times a week, but the other days it's like, we're just out grungy on the property. And so that was kind of hanging over my head. And then a few unforeseen circumstances happened like back to back to back to back, where it was just very clear, okay, we're moving this week. Yeah. And so we did. So that's why we are here. We had to pull the trigger really, really fast. And the Lord has been really gracious through all of it. We've been here for just a couple days, and that was not initially the plan to move this quickly in December. But the Lord has been really gracious. We've had so much local support, which we've just been so humbled by. So humbled by.
Yeah, it's been truly humbling because the fact is there at the end is that we did feel needy. We're like, okay, this is, we need a place, we need a place to stay. And people are so kind in our area. I'd say the last 3 months, people have been coming out of the woodwork offering a place to stay and being like, hey, like, I've got this ADU, or we've got an extra room. We've got a basement apartment. I've got an Airbnb that I could, kind of book out for you guys. And they were crazy generous offers, and it felt so wrong sometimes being like, well, man, we just liked where we were at. And so we didn't want to disrespect these people that were making crazy generous offers. But then it's like, well, we want to stay here. We're really happy here. And then we weren't. And it's like, well, let's go back through. Okay, let's start from the beginning of those people that had offered those places and come back around. And sure enough,
we do feel destitute now.
Yes. And some of our best friends here from our home group and from our church were the first people we went to. And boy, they just dropped everything literally, like on a Monday to just help us get totally situated in a house that they have. And it has been such a blessing to feel I don't think we've ever felt this like cared for and loved. Once again, just by like a community like this, And
I think it is really, really humbling because I think obviously moving out to the tent was our decision, and we didn't want our problem to be someone else's problem. And it wasn't a problem for a long time. And I think a lot of people saw it as a problem. And we're like, guys, like, this isn't a problem. We're happy. Like, this is going well. And I think I felt just so independent and confident in our decision. And like, this is great. And we've got tons of options if something goes wrong. And just so, I don't know, like relying on your own strength. And then just the way that we had to move out of the tent so quickly, it was just like, oh, wow. All of a sudden I felt so vulnerable. And it was really humbling to feel vulnerable and dependent all of a sudden on support from people. And it's a position I really don't like to be in. Like, I don't like to be in a position of asking people for help or saying, hey, we got out over our tips here. Or this did not go how we thought it was going to go in this scenario. And so, it's just really, really humbling. And the Lord's really been gracious to just work through other people and just to show us like, hey, there's a time to receive, and we're just so vulnerable as humans. Like, you don't just have it all together all the time. And I don't know.
Yeah. You said it so well, and I couldn't agree more. Like, my ego definitely took a hit. It was good just to check in my pride because like I said no. And I did it not, I don't think I ever was like, I was grateful. And we certainly considered
grateful
and we've considered it. It's like, hey, so-and-so called, and so they've got this available. We would talk about it. We'd go through the pros and the cons, and we're like, man, we just want to stay here. And so I'd get back and be like, wow, thank you so much, but I think we're going to stay here. And so it was, it was tough on my, I say tough on my ego. It wasn't actually, it really wasn't, because what needed to happen. And, but it was one of those things that you don't like being, we were victims of our own decision, I guess. Like, does that make sense? In the end,
the end.
Yes. Where it's just kind of like, wow, we chose all these things, and here we are. And there were some things that were outside of our control as far as like the elements. But it's still, we were in the situation that then led to the elements having the impact on us that they did. And so I do think that, it was a great learning experience. Such a thorough win. Like, when we look back over the last 6 months, just such a thorough win for our family, and our children grew just in huge ways. Their confidence, like just them overcoming fear of the dark, especially in these last couple months, because it's been getting dark so early. Them just going out to the bathroom by themselves, them going out down to the creek to get dishes, in the dark. And like a lot of times they'd bring a buddy, but like going and crating the cats every night in the dark. 6 months ago, they were not at all able to do that. And they just grew in confidence and capabilities. And that was really fun. And I think our family culture was really solidified in new ways. And so the overall takeaway is like, that was an incredible win. And also we got bailed out by friends at the end. We had a safety net that we didn't even know we had. And we didn't even know we needed, but we needed it. And I tell you what, that's just the power of a Christian community around you. It's not just for when you need help. Obviously, you want to be there to help other people too. And if anything, it's like, I want to create margin in my life so that I can be a blessing to other people as well, because we have just been poured into the last couple of days by our close friends from our group here. And like you said, it is humbling and it's inspirational, and it's really motivating too.
Yeah. When Elisha and I were talking through everything and going, hey, did we just like put ourselves through 6 months of craziness for no reason? Because obviously coming into a house, you're just like, oh, this is so easy.
Yeah, this is nice.
Like everything is so warm, and just like little things like going to the bathroom, like you get these little checks, like you see a mirror more often, so it's easier to like fix something that's like out of place. Cooking food, you just aren't in and out of the cold. It's like I've opened the door twice today, and I'm like, it is freezing outside. Like, and just the way our lifestyle was, it was very indoor, outdoor. You were going outside 72 times a day, and I'm just like, how are we doing this? Like, we're nuts. But when we were talking through it, I was like, no, like we both grew in a lot of confidence, and you don't grow in new capabilities unless you get outside your comfort zone. And people get outside their comfort zones different ways.
Yes.
And this was one way that we chose to get outside our comfort zone. And it's like our marriage grew big time through it. Our I think appreciation of the other person and them doing hard things for us.
Wow.
I mean, I definitely feel that way with Elisha, and just seeing him like in a very hands-on type of living experience. You're very dependent on the man in your life, even more so. You appreciate his physical strength and just the way that you would do all the hardest, coldest, heaviest jobs. And I was just so grateful for that.
Vice versa. Like, I've always been grateful for you, but yeah, it was just seeing you in that environment. On a daily basis, I would be mesmerized by how hard you were working for me and for the kids. It was just like such a direct serving of our family, and it just made me fall more and more in love with you and appreciate you more than ever.
I definitely feel that way. I just feel like, yeah, we gain new capabilities and we learn new things about like how little you can live with, like what's really necessary. And then when you do get in environments where you don't have a lot of resources, you could do pretty much anything with like a fire and a pan, you know, like there are some things where it's like, oh, you had to get really creative with living when you didn't have certain items.
Yes.
And I feel like we've both become a lot more resourceful, and our kids have become very resourceful. And it was funny just even moving here into this house. I mean, our oldest is 7, and we're unpacking stuff here, and they aren't even talking to me. They're just like putting stuff away in the pantry, putting stuff in the fridge, putting the dishes where the dishes go. The 5, 6, and 7-year-old, you know, putting the clothes away. And I'm just like, what is going on? They just had to become so independent and make so many decisions for themselves. And I feel like they're just so confident making decisions. And so anyways, I just feel like it was a really fun adventure. We have memories that thankfully we documented with our little point and shoot camera. We'll have them for forever. I'm so proud of the kids.
Me too.
So proud of the kids. I'm so proud of Elisha. And
Proud of you, yeah.
it was like, I don't know. It was just such a bonding experience.
Was.
So I'm really glad we did it. But also, like, I'm so happy we're done too.
Yeah.
Like it just came to this head where I am like, I am ready to, like Elisha said, just have margin again. I want to be on the giving end of things. And you realize that when your life is taking all of your bandwidth to live, you don't have a ton left over to be able to give.
Yes.
And that's something that we want to be really conscientious of going forward with our decisions is this going to push us to the max so much that, yeah, we're growing, but we aren't in a position to have that left over to be able to be like, oh, hey, I've got the time, or I've got the money, or I've got the energy,
Yes.
because we're just so maxed out living our own life. And that has been a good chunk of the last 6 months, specifically the fall and winter months. So anyways, those are, yeah, it's been a wild ride. We didn't think we would be there half a year, but I'm really glad we did it.
Me too. Yeah, and a lot of you were along on the journey with us, so thank you for participating. And you can look forward to the next chapter of life, a far more, civilized chapter for us, hopefully.
Yeah, who knows?
Folks, thank you all so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.